Here's the imperfect. Here's the imperfect of Savav. I gave it to you at the very bottom of page 211. It's yis. Are we on the board here? Here's the imperfect yisol. Okay? Now what's happened here? Isn't this annoying? You doubled the wrong letter, right? Because you really have two B's, two baits, not two somics. If you saw this sight unseen, what would you conclude is the root? You know enough to make an intelligent guess, see? You see the imperfect prefix? You see two root letters? You go shopping for a missing root letter, what's your clue? That daga should be the clue for a first nun. And you're going to come up with the root nasav, all right? And you're going to look it up in a lexicon or a glossary and find out it doesn't exist. Okay? And you're going to be mad. And you're going to be mad at me because I didn't prepare you for this moment adequately. Now here's the rule of thumb. This is why I put geminates in a chapter at the end of the book. Okay? Geminates are so badly irregular that they don't need to be learned. Does that make sense to you? There are certain things where they don't follow. If you can't follow a pattern and you can't predict and you can't control, then you got to admit you can't predict and you can't control. So don't waste your time. Right? Some people are like this. So what you do with geminates is, here's my rule of thumb. When all else fails, when you're stuck, when you've tried everything else and nothing seems to work, it's probably a geminate. I believe this rule of thumb actually is helpful if you understand it, right? Now, to illustrate my point that you can't predict these, let me give you another imperfect of a geminate. If you look at example 2 on the top of page 212, there is a second pattern of the same root. The imperfect of yasav can also turn out, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The imperfect of savav can also turn out as yasol. You see this form? Now, if you came across this form, sight unseen, without knowing it was a geminate, what would you parse it as? Well, you see your imperfect prefix, assuming you see an imperfect prefix, right? You see two root letters, and you're shopping for a missing root letter, right? Where's your clue for a missing root letter here? Remember this one? Yeah, there is a clue. It's right here. Name this vowel. Is this a hafal form? How many of you thought this is a hafal form because you have a kametz katuf here? Okay, only a few of you either did that or are honest enough to admit you made a mistake. Okay, that was a red herring. This is not a hafal. Why not? Because this is not a kametz katuf. How do you know it's not a kametz katuf? Because it's in an open syllable. It needs a long vowel. This is a kametz. All right. So you will always be confused on just that issue. You'll catch yourself making that mistake. I can almost promise you that. But if this is a kametz under an imperfect prefix, what's that a clue for? It's a clue for a hollow root. Do you remember that? The root shuv in the imperfect is ya shuv. You may or may not remember that. Okay? And in the jussive form, which you also may not remember, you lose the mater letter and get yashov. Well, the bottom line is that if you were putting the pieces together here, you would guess that this is some kind of a hollow root, either sov or suv, one of the two, sight unseen. And you would be making a logical conclusion based on information that you already know. And you would be, in this case, incorrect only because these aren't logical. And if you went to the lexicon and looked up sov and discovered it doesn't exist, you have now brought yourself to that point in your life where you can say, I've tried everything else, nothing makes sense with this verb form, therefore, it must be a geminate. All right? And you can read the rest of the lesson and understand what the problem is with these things, that they continue to cause this consternation. Look, for example, at the Hiffiel forms. Let me zoom back out here. Under C. And again, I'm not asking you to memorize a paradigm here. Okay, there's no point to memorizing the paradigm because the rules, the roots don't always follow the paradigm once you've memorized it. Question, Tim?
Will you ever get a pair of noons or a pair of hays where you're going to lose one of them so that of your two root letters that you're relying on and one's going to be doubled, that you actually lost one?
Lost them all.
Well, yeah, I don't think so.
How about two gutturals?
I'm amused by your question because students are always worried about the worst possible thing that can happen to you.
How about two gutturals?
Yeah, and you could happen.
You can't dog it.
Now, gutturals you can get, right? Remember my business about the disappearing root where all three letters disappear? Yeah, well, I told you that. There's got to be a root out there where all three letters disappear in the imperfect vowel consecutive, but we haven't found it yet because they're gone. This is a real problem. Now, Mark, to answer your question, by the way, I hate to be telling you these things. There are roots like
You could have just said no.
I could have just said no. There are roots like ra'ah, where you do have both geminate letters are guttural letters, which is going to add yet a third twist to this thing. But I mean, don't worry about it.
You can't doggish it.
You don't worry about it. Let's worry about it. Give me, all right, smarty pants.
Yeah.
Give me this form. Give me this form of ra'ah.
As I said, you can't doggish it.
You can't doggish it. You're absolutely right. The rest of the form is the same, right? So you'd want to have ra'ah, but the second is gonna be doubled in here. So you're going to have to do this, but you can't do that. So what happens? Since you can't double the ion, you lengthen the vowel. It's called compensative lengthening, and in a sense, you already know about this, right? So it'd be ra'othit. My point is, yeah, you can get. My point is this: yeah, you can get some really weird hybrid problems, but either you know enough to figure it out, or you don't know enough to figure it out, and you're going to get stuck once in a while. Right? That's kind of the way it is in life, right? That's why you call up the pastor up the street for help once in a while and say, what would you do in this case? All right? You don't know all the answers. That's okay.